Hey, I'm done with my illness, but I'm now next to a canal and the birds here are insanely loud, so if you hear them, just ignore them and let's move on to the tech news. This week we learned that Tesla sales absolutely collapsed, Sonos also continued their collapse, and Samsung got a surprise win. Welcome to the Friday Checkout. This video was sponsored by Brilliant. Okay, for my first story of the week, Tesla sales abruptly started collapsing around the world. Monthly salary figures showed that Tesla sales in Germany fell by an insane 59% year-over-year in January, according to the German Federal Motor Transport Authority, and the company only saw 1,277 registrations in the country. That is despite EV sales rising 50% in total for the market overall, which saw Tesla going from having 14% market share last January to just 4% this year. Insane. Even more brutal was France, where Tesla fell 63% year-over-year in January. Meanwhile, in Sweden, it fell 44%. In famously EV-friendly Norway, it fell 38%. And that is despite Sweden growing by 14% and Norway in general growing by an insane 82%. And finally, Tesla was also down 33% in Australia. Now, monthly figures can be pretty erratic at times, but importantly, Tesla saw big declines both year-over-year and month-over-month in multiple countries, so this does seem like a bigger problem. Looking at sales figures from last year, we can see that the US and China were Tesla's biggest markets overall, which haven't reported monthly sales figures yet, so we don't know if the house is completely on fire, but all the other top markets that have reported are doing poorly, so it can't be great. We recently got polls from the US which showed that 74% of Trump voters have a favorable opinion of Musk versus 5% of Harris voters. We can see that Musk has favorable ratings with drivers of gas cars and pickups, but unfavorable ratings with drivers of EVs. And from those planning to buy an EV next year, which is this year, Tesla has the highest ratio of unfavorable ratings at 37% by far. And keep in mind that this poll was made in November last year, and Musk has only gotten more polarizing since. Obviously, having Elon's most questionable antics projected on the German Tesla factory with giant projectors doesn't exactly help the company's image with the typical left-leaning EV buyer, and Europeans might be particularly unhappy about Musk trying to influence their local politics and elections as an unelected American himself. But funnily enough, the stock price of Tesla appears to be doing just fine because the company has just become an Elon coin for future promises rather than a stock of a car company. Okay, and talking of companies doing weirdly, my second story of the week will be Sonos continuing to circle down the drain. The company has just announced that it is laying off 200 employees next. This is after they already laid off 100 in the summer and after they got rid of their CEO, CPO, and COO recently too. All of this is somehow still related to them messing up the launch of their new app and their headphones, which the company now says cost them $100 million in revenue and $500 million in value on the market, and it is absolutely mind-boggling that they're still struggling with this. But hey, don't worry, the next Sonos product already got leaked, and by the sound of it, it will be pretty weird as well. The Verge reports that an Android-based streaming video player is coming from Sonos 2, which sounds like a kind of Nvidia Shield. That is an insanely competitive market, and the rumored price tag of $200 to $400 would make this a pretty complicated sell too. The device is codenamed Pinewood, and besides some high-end specs, The Verge says that its main party trick will be universal search, which potentially would even work for Netflix. That was previously never done before because Netflix always wanted you to open their app to start searching for anything that is in their catalog. How will Sonos pull this off when Apple, Google, and many others have already tried and failed? We don't know, but let's wait and see. Okay, and following up on two stories of struggle, let's talk about some good news for my third story of the week, which is going to come from Samsung. Specifically, Counterpoint Research revealed the top 10 best-selling smartphones for 2024 and also 2023. And last year, Samsung had its first flagship smartphone cracking the global top 10 for the first time in 7 years. That is the Galaxy S24 Ultra, and in a pretty elegant spot, no less. The global list only has Samsung and Apple phones, which has been the case for 3 years straight. But while Samsung previously only had cheap A-series phones in the top 10, now it has a flagship, which hasn't been the case since 2018. The analysts claim that this was due to strong consumer demand for Galaxy AI of all things, which has me a little bit skeptical. I think it's just an overall big focus of Samsung pushing the premium end of their range in general. Looking at the average selling prices of various phone brands over the last couple of years, we can see that Samsung managed to increase theirs from $252 to $299 over the last 4 years, which is pretty good and puts them way ahead of any other Android brand like Oppo and Xiaomi. That said, Apple absolutely towers over all the others with a pretty crazy $903 per phone. And as a result of all of this, Apple is also the absolutely clear winner in terms of overall revenue as well, with everyone else falling far behind. Still, nice performance for the S24 Ultra, and now let's move on to our release monitor. We're starting here with another Ultra called the Asus Zenfone 12 Ultra, which is the sort of non-gaming version of the ROG Phone 9 Pro. It has a huge 6.8-inch display, a Snapdragon 8 Elite chipset, 16 plus 512 gigs of memory, and believe it or not, also a headphone jack. So it got all the specs that you could possibly want, plus it interestingly also uses a Llama AI model instead of Gemini. Anyway, prices start at 1,100 euros, but it will skip the US apparently, so US buyers will have to go for the ROG phone instead. Next, Leica has announced the Lux Grip, which is a battery-powered phone grip that uses MagSafe to attach to an iPhone. It offers deeper integrations with Leica's own Lux app on the iPhone, and it costs $329. There's also a leather sachet for another $60, while the app also works best with a $7 a month subscription, so in typical Leica fashion, this is indeed pretty expensive. Moving on, Framework's open source RISC-V laptop mainboard just went on sale for $199. This is just for developers, but pretty cool. And if you have too much money on your hands, Herman Miller has also just announced what it calls the Spout Sit-to-Stand Table. This features built-in USB-C ports with 100 watts of power delivery. It can lift 400 pounds using its 4 powered legs, and it will cost between $2,300 to $3,400. Okay. And our last release this week is Nomad launching a USB-C cable that has an Apple Watch charger built in, so you can charge that and, for example, an iPhone all at the same time using just one cable. Kinda neat, though like most things Nomads, it's also pretty pricey at $100. As usual, all the release monitor products are linked down in the description, and now let's move on to the brief. Here we're starting with Trump's new rules causing the US Postal Service to stop and then restart deliveries for Temu and Shein within a day without explaining why. I gotta say, the implementation, as with everything else under Trump, seems to be pure chaos, but if they manage to plug all the loopholes that Temu is using to flood all of the markets, that would be something that I could get behind myself. Moving on, an app called Hot Tub just launched on the iPhone, and it calls itself the first Apple-approved porn app. Of course, Apple promptly let everyone know that it does not approve of the app, but it had to review the app for malware, and in the EU, alternative app stores like AltStore can make their own moderating decisions now, which is where this got launched. Europeans demand nakedness, and they will get it. Next, Oppo announced that its upcoming Find N5 smartphone will be coming in just 2 weeks. This is exciting because they're calling this, quote, the world's thinnest foldable, and also because it's getting a global launch at the same time as the Chinese version, which is rare. Probably North Americans will have to wait for a OnePlus version, but that's pretty cool anyway. Then Amazon announced a product event for the 26th of February, which people are expecting to finally be the new large language model powered Amazon Alexa. Will that be a disaster at launch? Who knows, but I can't wait to hear Panos Panay talking about how incredibly pumped he is about it. And also pretty pumped are the people at Spotify, which finally turned the profit for a full year for the first time ever. Specifically, they made more than $1 billion in profit in 2024 due to growth in premium subscribers and also increased prices. And they also announced that a new premium tier called Superfans is going to come soon, which is supposed to get additional features. The company is 19 years by now, so it's better late than never for reaching profitability, I guess. And moving on to AI news, Google made Gemini 2.0 now available to everyone, while it also made Gemini 2.0 Flash Thinking, its reasoning model, available as well. And not to be left behind, OpenAI announced a new deep research tool this week. They did a rebrand with a new logo and a new typeface, which looks, I don't know, pretty generic, I guess. And they also announced that you can now use ChatGPT web search without logging in, as the competition is heating up all around it. That's not bad, I guess. And hey, with half the world freaking out about some new AI news every week, maybe you'd like to learn how all of this AI stuff actually works under the hood, like for real. In that case, my sponsor Brilliant has a fantastic course called How LLMs Work that does just that, along with another one, for example, called Introduction to Neural Networks. I even used these myself as research for some of my AI videos, and these are really nice introductions to the topic. Brilliant is an online learning platform for STEM skills, which includes computer science topics such as the AI stuff that I just mentioned, but also just plain old physics, maths, biology, engineering, and more. It is a really nice platform for learning all of this stuff, and their methodology is to take really big, complicated topics like neural networks and to break those down into many smaller, manageable chunks, and to give you an interactive exercise to solve after each little learning. This not only makes learning with Brilliant just way more fun than just passively absorbing knowledge from somewhere, it also makes it much easier for the learnings to actually stick with you, as the interactivity really helps with understanding and retention. Check out everything that Brilliant has to offer for free for a full 30 days at brilliant.org/TFC, which you can also find linked in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription if you choose to get one. Happy learning, and I'll see you next Friday.